Let's get into it. Number one question. Does Tom Selleck posts on Instagram convert to business?
I don't know if it converts to business, but it definitely converts to connection. And you've got like the female, both female and male connection. Um, Really, what I get a lot, dude, is like people sharing like other Tom Selleck memes, and yeah, that's pretty fun. He's kind of become, I don't want to say like Chuck Norris, but he's definitely like reached, one of those levels of like, I don't know what that would be considered, but he's he's popular now. I mean, he's kind of always been probably to like to a group of people, but yeah, like culturally more. But it's really funny. We have like a little Tom altar in the shop, and some people come in and they're like, "Is that your dad?"
Oh, it
I
could
like
be that young.
absolutely love it. I love it, dude. And then some people think he's Burt Reynolds too, which is really funny. And then most people, well, actually, like generationally, it's funny because like Gen Z recognizes him as the guy that was on Friends. And then like millennials and up, kind of as far as age, like, Gen X and then boomers are like, it's like he's Magnum PI, of course. Yeah, for sure.
I guess I guess in a way, once you become like a popular meme, you're like a form of communication, really. Like
For
it's
sure,
weird how
dude.
people, instead of using words, they use your image. Like that's got to be weird to be on the receiving end if he's even aware of it. He's got to be somewhat aware of it, or
Yeah.
someone is. Um,
Yeah.
I had to actually look up if it was his name. I couldn't think of it, and I did the same thing. I was like, "Is it Burt Reynolds? No, it's not Burt Reynolds." But whenever I think of Tom Selleck, I think of House of Flowers. So that's funny. Um, so take me back to young Amanda before House of Flowers, since that's been you for so long. What were you doing before House of Flowers?
Oh, I was kind of just floating from thing to thing. I went away to college for a minute and then came back. I had a cell phone store um with my then partner. That was kind of interesting. Wasn't really happy. I was at a place where like a lot of my friends were doing stuff, like they moved away to college. Oh god, I'm sorry. Sticks. Um Sorry, dude. This is a wild house.
It is what it is.
Um, so yeah, I was in a place where a lot of my friends were going away and kind of had direction. I didn't have a lot of direction. I think I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur at some capacity, but I didn't really know what that was. Um, I did start working for another flower shop, and that was really cool and kind of like intimidating because I had never worked in that sort of like world or space before. And it can be intimidating because you're kind of like it's like very like customer service based. And then you're also like dealing with people in really like emotionally high states, emotionally low states. Um, and there's like a lot of trust that is built between like a florist and a consumer or a client. And so in that particular shop, there was like two owners, and nobody wanted to kind of speak with me over the phone. They always wanted to talk to like the actual owner. So you kind of just felt like like a pleb, which, I kind of was. But that was also like a really kind of cool time because I was getting kind of like behind the scenes view of what it was like at a flower shop. And I think everybody kind of has maybe an idea of what it's like. And I definitely had an idea of what it was like as far as like, oh, this is gonna be like really relaxing, like not really stressful. And, you're just kind of like around flowers and plants all day. But the reality of that was not the case. It was stressful. Um, Mainly for the reasons that I spoke about, like as far as like the emotional kind of element that is attached to the reason that people do like send flowers. Um, but something that was really cool that happened there that really like drew me to like the world of flowers and, maybe wanting to open up a flower shop is the shop that I was working for, they actually um they provided flowers for a local hospital for their gift shop. And so they let me kind of design like some bud base arrangements. And like something happened to me when I was doing that. Later on, I kind of linked it to kind of like a Zen flow moment. But I didn't know what that was at the time. I just knew like whatever like this is, like me arranging flowers and putting them in a vase, like it feels really good. Like in my body as a whole, and there's something here that I like have to pay attention to. And I was kind of like fucking hooked from that moment on. So I was kind of floating. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Um, and then I just kind of followed a feeling and I was like, whatever this is, I have to do this. I hope that answered somewhat.
Yes. Um, ho what do you think is, like, the one thing that has helped you sustain I mean, being a brick and mortar business, and then also being, like, associated and doing a lot of wedding stuff. It's, like, a very up and down, very hard to survive in that business, format.
Yeah.
What's been, like, the thing that's kept you going and able to keep the doors open?
Well, I am a strong believer that everything is a reflection of ourselves, like as far as the business goes. And so I've found in moments where like I want to quit and I want like just to say goodbye to everything is generally when I'm in kind of like a stuck place within myself and my own life and my own journey. And what has kind of kept me going is always kind of expanding on my own personal relationship with the art of flowers because I do consider it an art. I feel like for a long time, uh, it has been, I don't know. The thing is it's really interesting because there's not like the margins aren't great. It's very comparable to a restaurant as far as like if you do this dude like you better freaking love it and like you better continue finding the love for it because it's not necessarily going to make you rich and it's not necessarily like an overnight success story. I didn't know that, but I was drawn from that moment. I was like making bud vases, and so like the journey of continuing to figure out like what this is, what it means to me, and how I can kind of subconsciously express like whatever's going on in here, in here, in here, has been like really what keeps me going. And so like, what that means is um deepening my relationship with myself, thus deepening really my relationship with like everybody else in my life, thus deepening my relationship with my work, with my art, with my expression, and always finding new kind of I don't know, I'm always having, like, little revelations of, like, "Oh, this is similar," or "This is, maybe this is why I do this," and, um, like, for me, I know it's probably hard to imagine because I think on the outside, I probably come off really confident and easy to talk to, but that's definitely been like entrepreneurship and owning a business that has like kind of pushed me in that direction. And um I lost my point. I lost my point. I even lost the question
That's
on
all right.
that. Uh,
That's all right.
But yeah,
Um,
it's really just deepening my relationship, and that's kind of like what's kept me going because there's it's fulfilling. It's like probably the most fulfilling, like soul honoring thing I've ever done.
do you think it's I mean, you've done it for so long. Do you think it's even possible to really give it up at this point and go, like, be fully employed for someone else? C The freedom you have in being, a business owner, that's something I've gone back and forth, obviously, with all my different career choices, but that's something that I find very, very difficult is to
Yeah.
have to go to someone else to get something done, or, "Do you like this idea?" Instead of just doing it
Uh-huh.
and just,
Right.
like, testing stuff. There's always,
Right.
like, an argument, like, "Well, we gotta discuss it before we do it," and I just like going. Just go,
Mhm.
just go,
Right.
go, and eventually
Right.
something will stick. Do you think that you could even go back to, like, a normal 9 to 5 person working in, like, an office setting?
I don't know, it's very interesting. I don't have an answer, but I think about it a lot, because especially, I don't know, it's just like, it's part of the artist's struggle, I think, and this is kind of how I think about it today. How I think about it today is we are in a world that in a system that kind of has one way of living, which is like very structured, kind of like the successful model is, you know, um, kind of the corporate model. And it's kind of like ripped the soul out of everything and kind of humanity. And it's all, in my opinion, profits over people. And it's even in like it's opposite of the way that I feel like we should be living. And, uh, so and then there's kind of like a creative lifestyle where, your job is expression. You don't maybe necessarily have the stability of, like, a stable paycheck, and you feel like everything that you're doing is, like, so hard all the time because you're doing it for the first time, and there's, like, not necessarily a system set in place for you. And so I go back and forth, like I fantasize about having that stability, but then I also realize too it's kind of a part of the struggle and it's a part of the suffering that you go through in not choosing that other direction. And I've kind of just recently started to appreciate that struggle more. But yeah, it'd be incredibly hard for me to do so just because and I do have a unique situation. I am actually working a part-time job for a corporation currently, because of another journey that I'm going through to receive insurance. And it's been kind of like a great exploration of that, of like, okay, like, dude, you've always kind of like said, like, oh, like things would be so much better if I just made this much money or if I just had like a steady paycheck. And now that I do, one of the main things that I notice is okay, when I get up and to go to my shop, Am I ever like, "Ugh, I don't wanna go in," like, "Ugh." No, dude, because I know, like, it's up to me to kind of create the energy. I love what I do. This other little part-time job that I'm doing at nights, I'm, like, literally sometimes, like, I have to make myself just get out the fucking door so that I can go do it, and that's been really interesting because it's not, it's something that I want to do because it's giving me something, um, that I want kind of like in my journey. But when it comes to like, is this like honoring my soul in a way of like growth and what I really, really want and like the deepest parts of me? No. And I think that is probably at the core of what kind of keeps me coming back to what I do.
Sorry, there's a lot of lag. I'm not sure if you're done
That's
talking.
okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah, I can hear you.
You frozen. Okay.
No.
Um, yeah, I can are we still on?
Yeah,
It's
I'm
just
still here.
delayed by a lot. Okay. Okay. Cut this part. Um, I totally can relate. I convinced myself that I was gonna be like the best tech sales person ever, and I'm just gonna blow up and start with, being a SDR and get the, close all the deals and make the demos and do all this. And I convinced myself for like 6 months that, this is what I want to do and I'm going to get really good at it. And I got pretty good at it. But then once I got into it, I realized how soulless it is, and making 150 cold calls every day. I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to make sure I make those calls on the East Coast at the right time, and I would be in the shower being for like 15 minutes that I have to go immediately sit down at a computer and call people who do not want to talk to me. So I've definitely stepped from being a very creative person and doing everything I want, and then going to like really like one of the worst jobs in the world. I mean, cold calling is it takes a very particular person to succeed in that and to do it for like a long period. But
Yeah.
you do learn a lot about how to sell yourself and sell a service or a product. And so it is very educational. And I think it's a great thing to probably do for a small amount of time if you're interested in selling anything. But yeah, I struggle with this all the time where it's like whatever position I'm in or whatever position I've created, I'm always thinking the grass is greener. And I think I'm just not one to be complacent. And I always think that like once I start getting bored or things get easy, I want to move on and grow into something else. And I think that's sort of my biggest issue is that I get really, really bored once I start to master something. And I did that many times over the last like 6, 7 years in different roles. And that's sort of where I'm at right now, where I want to like all this knowledge I've been learning with LinkedIn and things. I would just want to apply it and do this and do that. And it's obviously completely different than doing flower arrangements, but in my mind, it's like creative on a different way, writing, making photos, making videos. So yeah, I don't know if you can ever that's the other thing is I don't know if you can fully ever be happy from your job, even if it is your passion and you are an entrepreneur and self-employed. I think that's the biggest mistake so many of us make is that you're trying to find happiness in work and
Yeah.
everything else brings you happiness. It's just a
Yeah.
bonus to go to work and enjoy it.
Right.
But I don't know. That's like my
Right.
current thought on work.
No, dude, and
I
I
I would
think
love to hear. I mean, you guys go ahead.
so, I was gonna say that I think, okay, like, I deeply believe that living is creative because we're trying to figure out, like, in this journey, how it is that we want to live. And I think what you're mentioning with, like, mastering things and then moving on to something else is you just continuing that journey of creativity and, like, doing what it is that kind of fills your soul, but, like, in another medium, whether that's, you know, podcasting or writing or whatever, and I feel like that's a completely normal part of the creative journey or process is kind of like, okay, taking what you're learning and then like trying out another medium and then like seeing how those connect. And that's like deepening your relationship with what you're doing and kind of filling your soul even further. So I can 100% relate to that. And I feel like if you're doing that, you're on the right journey.
Yeah, totally agree. It's, it sounds very weird to say this about LinkedIn, but it's done wonders in terms of self-reflection because I'm trying to think of things to write from my perspective. And it's amazing, like, once you get into, like, a writer mode, you're just constantly, like, reflecting on your life and like, "Oh, I did do a lot. I did have, like, this." I learned this by working at Little Caesars when I was 16 years old, and, like, how lucky I am to have worked with a guy from Jordan who was, like, the most completely out of the box character, but, like,
Yeah.
the things I learned from him, like, he's, like, a crazy person in a way, but, like, he also is a very business-minded person in his own way, and, like, I used to me and, Joel would have to if you no one knows Joel, but if people knew Joel, we would spend like hours calling a number checking on stocks for him. And at the time it seemed like, what are we doing? But like in a way, he was teaching us the value of investing, the little money you
Yeah.
make working at as a manager at Little Caesars. He was investing every penny into the stock market. And then
Hmm.
years later, he was able to run his own business and be successful and do his own thing. And that was always his plan. But like he would never tell you that, and he would always dismiss anything he was doing, but in a subtle way, he was, like, influencing the way I was thinking about how you make your dreams happen, and it's just crazy, like, if you think of all the people you worked with over your lifetime of all these little lessons that you easily forget unless you self-reflect a lot, and so that's the one thing I kinda really enjoy trying to help other people see sort of their story through these types of posts as well. Obviously, I'm still terrible at it. I'm a terrible writer. I hate writing, but like it's a process. Like anything, you have
Hmm.
to like do 1,000 things terrible to get that like one really good thing out. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's very interesting. Um, I would love to hear how you have successfully worked with family in a small business this long, because I feel like that's, like, very hard, I think, for anyone to even imagine, like, every day you go and work with your mom, like, it sounds fun, but then, like, I don't even think I would wanna do that with my mom, like, for
Yeah.
long term, because
Uh-huh.
she would get on my
Uh-huh.
nerves, but how have you navigated that this long?
Um, well, it's interesting when, your work is tied to it. That's always kind of or, your money in your bank account is kind of tied to it. So in a way there's like a commitment for me to kind of like figure it out. Um, and I would like to kind of just maybe talk about the difficulties in it. Like the difficulties are, of course, like nobody has a perfect childhood. And a lot of times you're kind of being like re-triggered with maybe some things that you didn't like throughout your childhood about your parents' personalities. But I think really what has helped me and, maybe I might sound like a broken record, but the more I deepen kind of like an awareness and relationship within myself and I realized that there were parts of me that were acting just in my daily life, that I wasn't, like, really conscious of. The more it made me have empathy for my family and just other human beings in general, and so I feel like that's probably the number one thing that has really, really helped me is just to get to know myself better. Um, and like, what does that look like? For me, it is just kind of like a practice of trying to kind of like observe. Um, but instead of like observing other people, which is like something I feel like I'm really good at and has always been something that stimulated me, even like my friendships younger, you can attest to this. Like we like love observing people and drawing kind of like humor from that. Um, so I kind of turned that lens from the outside kind of to the inside. And it really did um at first it's, like, really hard to do that because it's not something that I've practiced. It's not something that, like, my family has practiced. They're kind of I think what has been so wonderful about the journey is, like, realizing, like, part of the reason, like, my family is funny is because that lens is kind of, like, on an outward kinda, observation mode. So for me, it was really difficult to do that because you start to see your insecurities, and your insecurities initially can be looked at, or at least for myself, were looked at as weaknesses. Um, and but once you kind of get through that, you can kind of see yourself and be like, okay, like, I'm a result of maybe like these patterns or this environment. And that's the wonderful thing about being an adult is you can look at those things, you can observe them, and then you can start to maybe like change the way that you think about them. And honestly, that's been probably one of the best things I've ever kind of experienced to help myself with working with family because everybody's kind of like carrying their own baggage. And if I can just kind of take myself outside of it and be an observer of like, okay, like this person is talking to me like this, probably because, okay, so like personally, like my dad has issues with control. And I recognize it because I recognize my own issues with control. And once I recognize my own issues with control, like his issues of control and how that would come out, I was just kind of like, it was less triggering. And once I noticed that, I started noticing those other things too in like my mom, and it's less triggering. It's like, oh, okay, like I kind of understand like what's going on here. So that's probably been like the single best kind of way to deal with family. Humor is also really good too, because humor takes it from a place of like stress to also like the present moment, and it kind of diffuses things. So that works really well. But this is all something like I feel like I've been, I'm 43 now. Probably like within the last 4 years, I've started kind of like a journey of figuring that out.
Mm. Um, Onto a completely different subject. Do you have pretty deep connections with other creatives or other small business owners that, like, from the public side of things, you think, "Oh, they're, like, killing it. They're top of, the top restaurant, or they're the number 1 real estate agent," or whatever it is in the local Bakersfield market, and then you have, like, an actual private conversation, you realize they're drowning and suffering and struggling just like you are, and it sort of is amazing thing to have those relationships with other, business owners, because otherwise it can be very, very lonely. And I'm just wondering if you have a very similar experience as I have with many wedding photographers where it's like you think they're killing it, and then you talk to them over the phone, you're like, "I have no bookings for 6 months."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. I think we live in an age where, what is put out there on social media and stuff are pictures of success, but a lot of us aren't talking about the struggles. And yeah, like for example, I my new neighbor runs a successful restaurant, and she came in the other day. Two of her employees just quit, didn't give her any notice. And for her, it's really difficult because she's an owner, but she's not necessarily like an operator. And when something like that happens, like, dude, there's something about being in a business where you have to keep the snowball rolling, dude. You have to, because it's now not only yourself, you have other people that are relying on you to kind of keep that going. But yeah, I find a lot of times too, comparison is always like a really bad idea because people have different versions of success too. Um, Success to some people is getting a lot of attention. Success to some people is, you know, uh, the appearance of success. I'm kind of just in it for the long game and the
Counts.
journey. Yeah. Yeah. Which, people make money that way, which is cool. That's not necessarily my version of success or what I'm looking to do personally. And so remembering that it is kind of like a personal journey, and like what everybody's idea of success is a little different probably, is always really good, especially like in this time.
I went a very long time with, and also because we moved from New York back to California, but I spent a lot of time alone running my photography business, and, it's a very lonely place, and all you can do is compare, like, follower count or images or whatever it is, and you can get into, like, really dark places, and I think it's even worse now because
Mm,
everyone has got a podcast, everyone's got a huge following on one of the platforms, and there's just, like, everyone's really good at appearing to be very, very successful, but I'm learning more and more that, like, if you really, like, reach out to people just because they have 10,000 followers, they could have 0 revenue. Like, they could suck at everything. They can get followers, but they could suck at everything else. They don't know how to do a landing page. They don't know how to convert people who are reaching out.
yep.
And so it's almost a pointless act to even really compare and just only use social media to make connections and make community, which I only recently started doing with LinkedIn, to be honest. I've never thought of using TikTok or Instagram that way. And
Yeah.
LinkedIn, it's unbelievable if you like send positivity in a DM to someone on LinkedIn, they're like, "Thanks," and like they'll comment back on, like something they see on your profile, and then all of a
Hmm.
sudden they like support your post. It's amazing how you can have, like, strangers around the world you'll probably never meet, but you feel like all of a sudden you have cheerleaders on your side.
That's
So
that's
I think,
wonderful.
yeah, and it's organic. It's like you obviously don't wanna fake that, you wanna be true to
No.
yourself, and true to, like, what you're commenting and find people that you actually relate to. But the amazing thing is there's, like, a bunch of weirdos just like you out there, you just have to find them and
Hmm.
show them some support, and they'll be on your team very quickly. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't wanna we're at 33-minute mark, but, I
Okay.
think we could go forever. But I
Hmm.
just wanted to ask one random, maybe you have a good answer, maybe you don't. If someone was starting a creative business today with all the things you know, what's like the one thing you would like tell them to either be like really aware of or maybe to help them progress faster?
Ooh, I would say a combination of a few things. Just kind of like anecdotally based on my own journey. Um, I would say start to deepen your relationship with yourself. Okay. And then the other thing I would say is to find those moments in your life, like the one I was kind of talking about when they first let me start to design, where there was like something inside of me happening that was drawing me to this that I almost hadn't, I had no control over. I'm sure we all have moments in our lives where we feel kind of like this balanced alignment. And I would say, think about those things in your own life and uh, figure out how to kind of create more of those moments or to give yourself that, because I think that that's like our subconscious really saying, like, I need this nourishment in my life. And if you follow that direction, like you're acting from a very genuine, intentional, and kind of special place.
I had a similar experience working with when I randomly just reached out to a bazillion photographers when I lived in Australia. Luckily, like, one of the top photographers at the time, celebrity portrait photographers, let me come to her studio and interviewed me. I had no experience, and she let me become her assistant, and then all of a sudden, I'm, like, on celebrity shoots. I mean, they're Australian, so they don't really count. All of a sudden I'm on like these big, like high-end shoots. Um, and I'm like, this is work. Like this is what like your life can be if you really get good at photography. And so I think if you can be someone's shadow to really realize,
Mm,
have that moment where it's like the aha moment, is this really what you want to do without the pressure of starting and failing, and so you just sort of like learning and having the Karate Kid moment where they're wax on, wax off sort of thing. It's very powerful, and also you get a really good idea of how hard it is really if you get
mm,
a deep connection with that person within a couple of months, because they'll show the true side of running a business, especially a creative business, really quickly, and you realize it's not as easy as you think it is. It's not just taking pretty photos. And so there's, like the reality, and then do you still want to commit without
mm.
really losing anything besides your time. So I definitely highly recommend people reaching
So
out to like
solid.
someone they admire and just like, can I, be your, assistant for a certain amount of time just to see if I want to do
Hmm.
this. It,
Yeah.
and and it works out if you really go all in on it. Where can people find Flowers by Amanda in Bakersfield, California? Where are you guys located physically, and where can they follow you?
Yeah, so we're a full service florist located in Bakersfield, California, downtown, 27 18th Street, Suite B is where we're located. And then we do have an Instagram at House of Flowers CA and also a website, www.ahofdesigns.com.